I'm here to talk about nothing. Phone 2. The Nothing Phone 2 is the Nothing company's second phone, and it's going more towards the flagship side of things this time around with a general upgrade in all aspects of hardware, improved processing, better display, better glyph lights, which is what everyone buys this phone for, and overall build quality. There's even improved waterproofing, or splash proofing if you will. This now has an IP54 rating compared to the Nothing Phone 1's IP53 rating. It's not exactly waterproof, it's just splash proof, but better. Today we're here to find out whether this is worth buying into, because now there are two variants, which are the 12GB RAM with 256 gigs of memory and 12GB of memory and 512 gigs of storage. And they range from 2,999 ringgit all the way to 3,499 ringgit. Okay, that's a good choice now. There's 12 gigs of RAM all across the board, and we're just separating them using just two different storage sizes. But yeah, how different is it from the Nothing Phone 1? The difference is pretty much in a bit of the design, because right now it's a bit more rounded in the edges and corners compared to the Nothing Phone 1, which is just generally flat. So this one kind of protrudes out now. The camera module pretty much looks the same. The glyph lights are a little bit different. There are cuts in a variety of areas that is different from the Nothing Phone 1, which is pretty much straight lines and curves all across the board. There's a better display, and it's also a little bit bigger. The Nothing Phone 2 has a 6.7-inch display rather than a 6.55-inch display on the Nothing Phone 1. It's 120Hz in refresh rate, and it's using an LTPO AMOLED panel. The colors were really nice. I really liked how everything just looks very vivid and colorful. You can choose between DCI P3 gamuts and sRGB as per usual, and LTPO. And this gives it better variable refresh rate performance because it can go as low as 10 Hz when you're looking at static images, and all the way up to 120 Hz when you're just scrolling around Nothing OS. You know, your YouTube and your Netflix is still 60 Hz. There's HDR in there. You can watch HDR videos on this phone, and it just looks great. Everything was bright, everything was colorful, and I don't really have anything to complain about the display. As for performance, this time around it uses the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which a lot of spec heads would be very disappointed in, but I'm telling you, Nothing is trying to stop you from being a spec head. They just want you to focus on the user experience so that you don't always just want to be chasing specs for really no good reason. I mean, it's an aged chipset, but it's a good chipset, the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. And this one is even a little bit clocked down in performance because they wanted better efficiency and battery life, but you still be able to play any game you want on this. And you don't really have high refresh rate gaming enabled on this phone as of now, but this isn't a competitive gaming phone. It just has a normal passive cooling system. You can still play any game you want at 60 FPS on medium to high graphics. The chipset is optimized to do so anyway. It is a flagship after all. And with 12 gigs of RAM, there's nothing to worry about in terms of multitasking and smoothness. And since the processor is factually clocked down, just how good is the battery life? Well, if you're a very heavy user, you're using your social media, your messaging, and doing your daily tasks every day, you can easily go home with even 40% if you're conservative. But if you are a gamer, you will still be going home with at least 20% left in the tank, and I'd say that that's a pretty good number for what it is. 4700 milliamp battery. It's not 5000, but I can tell you that it works just as good as any other phone with a 5000 milliamp battery because it's still giving you at least a full day, a full busy day's worth of battery life. So the glyph lights, is it really still a gimmick? I don't really think so. It's actually pretty useful apart from being a ringtone sequence light show. And now there's even a glyph composer where you can create your own set of notification and ringtones from a preset amount of different samples that are very glitchy in style, very nothing, so that you can have pretty much your own identity even on this minimalist phone. And other things include a timer, which will be here, where you can show your progress of your timer going down and down before it starts ringing again, and even essential notifications, which is something very nice and very new. You can set long persistent notification LEDs for important messages. For example, if you want to make sure that you know that you're getting a message from, let's say, your mother or from your wife or your husband, it will stay lit until you read that notification and reply. And that's pretty good because you're making more and more use of the lights, and it's making it less and less of a gimmick. And of course, it can still be your volume indicator. See that? Going all the way up and going back all the way down. And it's very responsive. It's not as glitchy as the phone suggests. So I would say in terms of improvement for the Glpyh system, I'd say nothing did a really bang up job. So the camera sensors, they're very simple and they're very straightforward, just like the Nothing Phone 1. It's using a Sony IMX890, and for the ultra wide, it's a Samsung JN1. These are fantastic cameras. I really like it. The post-processing is really unique. You can definitely see that these images are very heavily AI assisted, but I don't really have much to complain about because it's a simple phone with simple cameras. It's just doing its job. And I will tell you right now that the color consistency between the main wide angle and the ultra wide angle are very consistent, and you can definitely see that one is obviously sharper than the other, even though they're both 50 megapixel sensors, because, you know, one sensor is bigger than the other, even though they're at the same perceived pixel size. And as I mentioned before, even if you go for the zooms, which are digital and not optical, it's still okay at 2 times, because you can see that the detail is still pretty nice and sharp, a lot of post-processing. But when you go to 5 times, you can see that everything starts to look more artificial and a lot more painted on. Manage your expectations. This is pretty much a limitation these days. You don't have a dedicated optical sensor, which is pretty much okay. You have a wide angle and ultra wide anyway. And now for the 32 megapixel selfie camera. Technically it's 8 megapixels because it's quad Bayer, so it's upscaled in that fashion. I think it just does okay. It's reasonably sharp. You can still see how tired I look in these photos. I don't think it's that bad, but I don't think it's that good either. There's still a long way to go. Portraits as well. You can see that the subject separation is actually pretty decent, and I don't think this is the highlight of the Nothing Phone 2, and it's just good enough for you to, like, you know, share your selfie on stories or social media, but you know, obviously this is not gonna beautify you in a way that compliments you anytime soon. If you're a Nothing fan, obviously this is a very nice upgrade. But if you're somebody who prefers to have the best possible specs at the best possible value, this isn't for you. This is for somebody who prefers better, smoother operating system experience with a nice style. They're buying into the gimmick because they believe that it's not a gimmick and that everything works as intended and more. Because this is definitely still a conversation piece, but it just didn't wow me as much as how the Nothing Phone 1 when it first came out, because it was the first of its kind. Now this is technically second of its kind from the same company. If you're coming from the Nothing Phone 1 and you just wanted better performance, yeah, sure, because that's a really big jump between that Snapdragon and this Snapdragon. And if you wanted to upgrade the cameras because you felt that the Nothing Phone 1's cameras were good but still not great, yeah, you can move to great from that good. But in terms of competition, this is not like the greatest compared to everyone else. There are much better camera phones out there at even more competitive prices. But still, it's one of the cleanest Android experiences you can get out there. Very good customization, very good style, great aesthetics. If you don't want to pay that kind of money but you still want the phone, you can partner up with Yes 5G. Yes 5G is the exclusive partner for all things Nothing Phone 2, and you can sign up for their Yes Infinite Plus Ultra plan, which gets you an absolutely free 512 gig variant of the Nothing Phone 2, and you just need to pay 178 ringgit a month. You get 5G speeds, you get uncapped data, uncapped quota, uncapped speeds, and it's a 36-month contract. So if you're interested in that, I'm leaving links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Zen the Geek, and this has been the Nothing Phone 2.